Imagine you're standing out in the middle of nowhere, snow blasting your face like a sandstorm from hell. It's so cold your breath freezes before it even leaves your mouth. No jacket, no gloves, no fancy gear, nothing. Just you, the wind, and a whole lot of white. How in the world do you make it through the night? How did our ancient ancestors not only survive this kind of brutal cold for thousands of years, but actually build lives in it? Man, that's the question that keeps me up at night, and by the end of this, it's gonna blow your mind too. So let's talk about how ancient humans survived in the snow. We're going way back, to the Ice Age, when massive sheets of ice covered huge parts of the planet, and winters felt like they would never end. These weren't weekend warriors toughing it out for a season. These were our direct ancestors and their cousins like the Neanderthals, dealing with temperatures that would kill most of us in hours. Yet they made it work. And honestly, the way they did it still matters today, whether you're dealing with a nasty Midwest blizzard or just wondering what humans are really capable of when things get rough. The Ice Age wasn't one quick freeze. It was a long stretch of crazy cold periods, with the last big one hitting its peak around 20,000 years ago. Glaciers everywhere, sea levels way lower, animals the size of trucks roaming around. Food was hard to find, predators were no joke, and one wrong move meant you were done. But instead of disappearing like a lot of other species, early humans adapted like crazy. They used their heads, their hands, and their ability to work together. That's what set them apart. It all starts with fire. Without that, forget everything else. People were controlling fire hundreds of thousands of years ago, but during the Ice Age it became their best friend. Picture a small group at the end of the day as the sun drops and the temperature tanks. They get a spark going, nurse it with dry grass and wood, and suddenly there's this warm glow pushing back the dark. That fire kept them from freezing. It cooked their food so it was safer and gave them more energy. It scared off lions and hyenas circling the camp. Most of all, it turned a bunch of individuals into a real group. They'd sit around it, fix tools, tell stories, and just feel like they had a fighting chance. Psychologically, that circle of light was everything when the world outside wanted you dead. But fire by itself doesn't cut it when the wind is screaming and frostbite is waiting to take your fingers. That's when clothing came in, and this is where our ancestors got seriously clever. They didn't have stores or factories. What they had was the animals around them. They hunted reindeer, bison, mammoths, even cave bears, and turned their hides into gear. There's evidence from Germany showing people were using bear skins for warmth as far back as 300,000 years ago. Those thick, shaggy pelts were incredible insulators. One good bear hide could wrap around you and hold in body heat even in a full-on blizzard. They took it further though. They scraped the hides clean, treated them, and started sewing them together using bone needles and threads from animal sinew. Reindeer fur was a favorite in a lot of places because those hollow hairs trap air like built-in insulation and even shed water. They made layered outfits, boots, hoods, mittens, the works. Think about how smart that is. Animals grow fur over generations. Humans just invented movable, adjustable insulation they could put on or take off depending on what they were doing. That's not basic survival. That's straight-up innovation. Even with all that, the cold still pushed them hard. So they got creative with shelter too. Caves were gold when they could find them, and groups would return to the same one season after season. But they didn't just sleep on the dirt. They'd build windbreaks with branches and extra hides, line sleeping spots with grass or ferns for extra warmth, and always keep that central fire going. In other places they constructed full-on huts. Wooden frames covered in skins, sometimes dug partly into the ground to block the wind. Some spots in Europe and Siberia even used mammoth bones as supports for sturdy little houses that could handle serious storms. Now imagine being inside one of those shelters during a heavy snow. Outside it's chaos, wind howling like something alive. Inside, it's smoky but warm enough. You smell drying meat, hear kids playing, see adults working by firelight. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. They created their own little climate bubble. And mentally, that made a huge difference. When everything's trying to kill you, having a reliable place and people you trust keeps you from losing it. But that's not even the wildest part of how they pulled this off. Food was the daily grind. Plants mostly died or got buried under snow, so hunting ruled everything. They went after the big cold-adapted animals, woolly mammoths packed with fat, reindeer herds they could follow, horses, bison. They got really good at it. Some groups used natural traps or drive lanes to funnel animals into ambushes. They'd use spears or atlatls, those spear-throwing tools that gave them power and distance. Nothing went to waste. Meat got eaten fresh or preserved by freezing or drying. Bones turned into tools, fat into lamp oil. It was smart, planned resource use that turned the Ice Age into something they could live off if they played it right. Neanderthals were absolute beasts at this. Their bodies were built for the cold, stocky with short limbs to hold on to heat. They were strong and knew how to hunt dangerous game up close. When Homo sapiens showed up in bigger numbers, we brought flexible social groups, better projectile weapons, and a willingness to try new things. The two groups actually mixed, and some of that Neanderthal DNA might still be helping some of us handle cold better today. Sleep was another challenge. How do you rest when the cold is trying to take you out? They probably took shifts keeping the fire alive. People slept close together under heavy furs for shared body heat. Over time their bodies adapted too, adjusting metabolism and circulation. They might have even used some cold exposure on purpose to build toughness, kind of like how athletes today use ice baths. Their internal clocks probably shifted with the long nights, letting them sleep more when it made sense. The human body is way more adaptable than we give it credit for, and they live that truth every single day. The mental side might be the most impressive part, though. You can't survive that kind of environment alone. You needed tight groups where people shared food, watched each other's backs, and took care of the old and young. Elders passed down knowledge about reading the ice, tracking animals in fresh snow, and fixing gear before it failed. Stories around the fire kept everyone connected and reminded them they'd beaten tough times before. In a world that could break your spirit fast, that cooperation and shared purpose was the ultimate survival tool. It's wild how these same ideas show up in modern Arctic communities. Layered animal skin clothes, shelters that use snow's natural insulation, deep respect for the land. It's like a direct line from Ice Age times to today. Even in our heated houses and grocery store world, that old instinct kicks in during big storms when neighbors check on each other and communities pull together. We've got more than just their genes. We've got their grit. One of the craziest recent finds is just how early they were making sophisticated clothing. That bear skin evidence from 300,000 years ago changes the timeline on how advanced they were. They weren't randomly grabbing pelts. They were choosing animals for specific qualities, processing hides with real skill, and building complete systems around it. On top of that, genetics showed that as people moved into colder places, certain gene changes spread that helped with heat production and fat burning. They were evolving right alongside their cultural tricks. Biology and brains working together. Picture a hunting party out in deep snow tracking a mammoth. One successful takedown could feed everyone for weeks. But the risks were insane, slipping on ice, getting charged by something that outweighed them 10-1, or getting lost in a sudden whiteout. Still, they planned it carefully with scouts and signals. The reward wasn't just meat. That fat could become oil for lamps, pushing back the long winter darkness so they could keep working on tools and clothes. It created this positive loop where one success made the next one easier. As the Ice Age finally started easing up, all those hard-won skills let humans spread out across the globe. What they learned in the European snowfields traveled with them to Asia, the Americas, and everywhere else. Every new challenge got met with the same approach: watch the land, improve your tools, stick together, and keep learning. It's why we eventually built cities, invented technology, and even reached the poles with modern equipment. All of it traces back to those first people who looked at the snow and said, "We're not backing down." So what does this mean for us now? When the power goes out in a winter storm or the news talks about extreme weather, remember that our ancestors faced way worse and came out stronger. We've got their DNA, their problem-solving minds, and that same ability to come together when it counts. Next time you're out shoveling snow or bundling up against the cold, think about the long line of survivors behind you. They didn't just survive the snow. They owned it. And because of that, the rest of human history got its shot. What challenges are we going to face next? I think we've got everything we need to handle them, just like they did. The